All right, let's talk about a term that you have almost certainly heard before, but you might not know what it actually means. We're diving into the Immaculate Conception. Now, it's a huge deal in Catholic belief, but for a lot of people, it's not at all what they think. So, what is it really all about? Well, let's get into the story behind it, a story that some believe started before time itself. Okay, let's just get this out of the way right now, because this is the number one point of confusion. The Immaculate Conception is not about the birth of Jesus. Nope, that's a completely different thing called the virgin birth. So if it's not that, what is it? Let's break it down. So check this out. It's actually really simple when you see it side by side. On the left, you've got the Immaculate Conception. This is all about Mary, specifically the moment she was conceived in her mother's womb. The core idea here is that she was uniquely preserved from original sin right from that first instant of her life. Now, on the right, that's the virgin birth. That's all about Jesus being conceived in Mary's womb through the Holy Spirit. See the difference? So for the rest of our time here, we're focusing completely on Mary's Immaculate Conception. To really get why this idea of being preserved from sin is such a big deal, we've got to rewind. I mean, way back, before the world was even a thing. The idea is that there was already a plan in motion. You could call it a divine blueprint for holiness. This line from the book of Ephesians is a game changer for understanding this. It suggests that holiness wasn't some kind of plan B. It was the original design for all of humanity. And from this perspective, Mary's Immaculate Conception isn't just a random miracle. It's the perfect first fulfillment of that original blueprint. So that brings up a pretty big question, right? If the original plan was for everyone to be holy and without blemish, well, what on earth went wrong? Why isn't that the world we see all around us? And that question, it's really the starting point for the entire story of salvation. The answer, as you might have guessed, takes us straight to the book of Genesis. The story of the fall of Adam and Eve, it's not just about losing paradise. It's also, amazingly, where we find the very first glimmer of hope, the first promise that things will be set right. So in Genesis, the choice made by Adam and Eve kind of throws a wrench into that original plan for holiness. This event, what we call the fall, introduces what's known as original sin. Now, this isn't about a personal mistake you or I made. It's understood as a state of separation from God that all of humanity inherits. But here's where the story gets really incredible. Even in this moment of apparent disaster, the narrative pivots. God immediately makes a promise, and theologians have this amazing name for it, the Protoevangelium. It literally means first gospel or first good news. It's the very first hint of a rescue plan. And this is that promise, spoken directly to the serpent. It foretells this epic struggle between evil, the serpent, and a specific woman and her child. But crucially, it ends with her offspring crushing evil. Think about that. Right from the dawn of time, a woman is placed at the absolute center of the story of redemption. Okay, so let's hit fast forward. We're jumping from the very beginning of the Old Testament all the way to the New Testament, where we finally meet the woman seen as the fulfillment of that ancient promise. In Christian tradition, she's often called the New Eve, and her great yes is about to change the course of history. Her story kicks off with a visitor, an angel. And this moment, the Annunciation, is pivotal. The very first words the angel Gabriel says to her aren't just a simple hello. They are a title, a name that unpacks who she is and what her role in this cosmic plan is all about. Hail, full of grace. Whoa, the angel doesn't even use her name, Mary, at first. He addresses her by this title. And in the original Greek, the grammar implies something that has already happened. It's not that she's becoming full of grace in that moment, it's that this is her state of being. This, right here, is the biblical cornerstone for the Immaculate Conception. So that title, full of grace, is everything. It's interpreted to mean that Mary was completely filled with God's divine life from the very first second of her existence. She was, in essence, created in that state of holiness that was God's original plan for all of us, preserved from that state of original sin. This comparison is just so powerful. Look at the parallels. The old Eve has an encounter with a fallen angel, which leads to disobedience and sin entering the world. But the new Eve, Mary, has an encounter with a holy angel, which leads to her perfect obedience and salvation entering the world. It's a perfect reversal. And her incredible response of obedience is known as the fiat. It's Latin for let it be done. It might sound simple, but those words represent her complete and total trust in God's plan.
her perfect cooperation with the grace she'd been given. It's held up as the ultimate act of faith.
So after all this theology and history, what's the big takeaway? What does the Immaculate Conception really mean for people today? Well, the core message is actually pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. Grace is stronger than sin. You see, Mary's story isn't just about her. It's meant to be a living, breathing sign of hope for everyone. It's this powerful statement that God's grace is more powerful than any human weakness or sin. It's a reminder that holiness really is possible. Because of this, she's seen as a sort of blueprint for holiness. Her life becomes a model for what our own lives can look like when we really say yes to God. It points us toward virtues like humility, obedience, purity, and this perfect, trusting union with God's will. And all of this leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. The Immaculate Conception is all about God's incredible grace, for sure, but it was also met with a human yes. So if that divine grace can create such a perfect plan for holiness, and it's always available to us, what's our role? How do we cooperate with it? What will our yes look like?